Hello, my name is Pastor Betty Quintella Williams, and I am 73 and very frustrated, sometimes very angry, disappointed at the things that I see going on. So I decided that I would make this presentation to try to get the hearts and the minds of my people so that they will understand what they need to do. We are in a very critical time now, and we must be very careful and wise when we make decisions, especially one in November. I hear most people saying they don't know what to do. They don't want to vote for either candidate. Some said they are fearful. Well, I want you to know there's no need to fear, because our God does not give us the spirit of fear, but He gives us love, and He has given us a means to get understanding. And that's what I want to do this morning. I was thinking about the things that the black people really need now in this society. And I think one is to be free. As I was thinking about freedom, and it came to my mind that Abraham Lincoln, who was a Republican, tried to do that very thing. He made the request that my people would be free, and in signing the Emancipation Proclamation. So he did what he saw and understood to be a means to help our people. And we can see today that in spite of all of that, we are still wondering about our freedom. Well, I was thinking about our Constitution, and I know you hear all the time that we have the 14th, the 15th, the 1st, and the 6th, and the 4th Amendment. So we're okay. We can just draw on those amendments and get whatever it is we're asking for. But I came across an amendment that no one talks about, and that's the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment was written in 1865, and Section 1 says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So right there we see that slavery is still okay in 2016, because if it's used for someone that's committed a crime, then it's okay. So in thinking about that, I think that we have our plantations still in existence, because as you know, when Clinton, President Bill Clinton was in office, he had approximately 12 prisons built in the state of California. And we know that California has the largest number of prisoners than any state. So you can see that California has many plantations. So that's one of the reasons that we are so enslaved here. And another thing that I saw was that every 25 years, the motion has to go to Congress so that blacks can continue to vote. And these are things that I think should have been taken care of, especially since we had a black or an African in the White House. I thought that those would be taken care of immediately. I said the first thing he will do is tell the Congress to let my people go. So I was very disappointed when that happened. But then as I looked back in the history, I saw that each time something was done in order to help the black race, it was a Republican that was in office. And so when that came to my mind, I said, you know, I must be sure of that because I don't want to think that and it may not be true. So I started looking back at some of the issues that were presented to Congress when the different presidents were in. And I was very surprised that I found so many issues that were presented that were either vetoed or they just didn't want to hear them. For example, the Clinton administration massive education reform bill goes in year 2000 makes no mention of continuing desegregation efforts. The focus is on public school choice and returning more control of schools to the state and local levels. Overall, segregation of minorities is merely identical now to 1970 level. In fact, there was an article in the Time magazine that was headed "The End of Integration," and that was printed in 4/29/96. So we can see that still today in our schools, that they're still segregated. But this was presented, 20 years ago. And we are still seeing that now. And as you know, they have taken the prayer out of schools and they don't want any mention of God. When I was coming up and going to school, the first thing we did in the morning was pray, and then we would pledge allegiance to the flag each morning because we were taught about the love for God and love for our country. And I think that's very important and should be in our schools today. And at 73, I would love to see that happening because I have great grands and great grandchildren that I would like to see come up with that training. Also, President Clinton proposed advisory commission on race in America as of June 21, 1997. And this committee included no American Indians, 3 whites, 2 blacks, 1 Hispanic, and 1 Korean. This can be found in the San Francisco Examiner, 6/22/97. The Personal Responsibility Act, H.R. 4, Section 402, proposed by the Republican Congress in 1995 and vetoed by President Clinton in 1996, contained numerous restrictions against non-citizens gaining access to health care and social services. Wow, you can see the effects of that today. In 1996, the U.S. Sentencing Commission recognized the racial disparities created by the crack powder, cocaine, sentencing distinctions, and recommended to the U.S. Congress that the penalties be the same for both crimes. These recommendations were rejected by the U.S. Congress, Attorney General Janet Reno, and President Clinton. The Stolen Lives Project, which was centered in New York City, has from 1990 to 1999 documented the death of almost 1,100 people at the hands of police, peace officers, and prison guards. And 2/3 were killed by local police or sheriff, whether they were on or off duty. Well, we can see what's happening now. 20 years later, there's the group with Black Lives Matter. And this is the soup warmed over, but many people think that this idea came up and it's new, and they're really concerned about blacks and they really want to help them. Well, we can see 20 years ago, they already had that Stolen Lives Project. So why not just do what should have been done then, or do the things that they had promised? Why start a new group? It's all the same. In 1994, President Clinton acknowledged the reality of environmental racism. 3 out of every 5 African Americans and Latinos live in communities with 1 or more waste sites. Over 15 million African Americans are being in communities with 1 or more abandoned or uncontrolled toxic waste sites. And this was 20 years ago. So just think of now, just look around in your communities and see. I had a terrible thing that I was confronted with a few weeks ago. A friend pastor of mine lived in one of these communities there in Richmond. They still have the train going through her community. But she was walking to the doctor and was hit by a train and killed. And this is 2016. So our communities still have the railroad tracks, the toxic waste. So what has changed? Now it seems to be worse. Then we know approximately 4 million Africans and their descendants were enslaved in the U.S. and the colonies that became the U.S. from 1619 to 1865. The U.S. House of Representatives Bill H.R. 40, which is 1990, Section 2, every ex-slave family be awarded 40 acres and a mule. Has that happened? I mean, that was proposed to the Congress, and all the other people were paid for the Korean, the Jews, everyone paid but the black race. I think someone should look at that bill now, because we're now 20 years later and things are still the same. And I do believe that the black race should get reparations for the work that was done that is still of benefit today, for the injury that was caused, for all of the things that's happening now, the crimes, the shootings, the drugs, all of this is the direct result and a reason why the black race should be paid. Racism is so subtle, yet it's serious here in the United States. The criminal justice system, for example, in 1994, 70% of the California prisons population is composed of minorities. And there are today approximately 200,000 inmates, men and women, incarcerated that should not be. More than 20,000 of those are completely innocent, but they are incarcerated. Why? One, because there's no trial that is really according to our Constitution. There is not a fair hearing in all the cases that are presented. For an example, the prisoner Jermaine Givens, who was convicted at trial of a murder and attempted murder. But when you look at his trial, you will see the reason why. An all-white jury, a false witness, mother and grandmother put out of the courtroom at the beginning by giving a subpoena to testify. The gun used at the trial was not the gun used in the commission of the crime. The tapes played in the court had not been verified. One of the jurors was sleeping during the trial. The defendant's attorney did not have experience, and he never made a motion. He never made an objection. It didn't seem to really keep up with the trial. The DA, in closing, misled the jury by saying, look at the door. If the grandmother and mother believed that he was innocent, they would come through the door right now. And he knew that he had given them subpoenas to testify. Their names had been put on the witness list. So with the jury see the witness list and see the mother and the grandmother on the list to testify for the DA, the state, then they said, well, if the mother and the grandmother believe that he's guilty, he's guilty. What I have given you is just a little tip of what is really going on. I want my people to really understand that this election is really important. We have some very serious issues, and I want you to understand the difference in the parties. I grew up Republican. My family was Republican. My grandfather said that he would never change his party because when he was eligible to vote, the Republican Party was the party that accepted them. The blacks could not vote Democrat in Arkansas at that time. And he said if they didn't want him in the beginning, then why would he change? He also taught us that we didn't need a soup line and we didn't need crutches. He believed that the Democratic Party gave crutches to our people. I believe from seeing the things that's going on now and through the years I have watched, that oppression has been put upon a people, and it's done in such subtle ways until it's not realized. For an example, I met someone in housing. They have lived in housing throughout raising their children. They're in their 60s now and still in housing. Although this person have worked on a job or two, she still remains in housing. Why? Because she's gotten used to that crutch. And in taking a job, we still would not go to our fullest potential by being a supervisor or a manager, because if we have too much income, we will lose our housing. But what is this teaching the next generation? They will come up and do the same thing. So they won't be doctors or lawyers or even a manager on a job. So the mindset is very, very important. So I want you to think about it when you go to vote. Just look around and see. Don't have fear, because fear, most of the times when you fear something, you're fearing something that will never happen, because it hasn't happened. I know that people have said a lot of things sometimes, and I guess it makes you fearful, or you think bad about them, or in a way that is not. But we all say things and do things sometimes that's out of line. But does that mean that we are not a good person, or we shouldn't do, or you won't have other people's interests at heart? No. So be careful, be smart, and be wise. I believe, from my experiences, I came up Republican. I raised my children a Republican way. And I find that that was the best way, because it kept me from crutches. It kept me from a lot of things that I would have gotten into and probably would have ended up with the case, because I would have been trying to keep a house or something that I was not earning. So be mindful, be careful, and be smart. Thanks for listening, and it's my prayer that my words will meet your heart and your mind and cause you to think. If you have any questions about anything I said, or you want more information, I have plenty. You can call me at area code 530-554-3557, and we can talk. Or you can email me at queenbettyn@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening, and be smart. Thank you.